All right, welcome back for another episode of Two Playing Sports. Today is Monday, April 10th, the day after the Masters. Congratulations to John Rahm. I wish it was a little bit more competitive. Brooks Koepka, he choked pretty hard. I always really like a tournament where you've got two or three guys going back and forth for competing and winning the green jacket. But John Rahm's been on a tear. Not really a shocker that he ended up winning. So.
Did Brandon pick him for that individual challenge last week? Couldn't remember.
I had him as the leader after round two, which didn't come true because that was Brooks. Yeah,
That was Brooks. Yeah.
Brooks fell apart.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll do one beer chug. That's the agreement we made to off camera. So since your guy was leading between the three of ours, I'll do
I'll
one.
take it.
The next
I'll take
live.
Oh yeah.
The next live. But yeah, I mean, overall, John Rahm's on a tear. Not much of a shock. It's cool that he ended up winning. So now moving on, the draft, spring game's coming up, the draft's coming up, everything. We're about to move into summer ball before we know it. So today's episode, Oklahoma also had a really good weekend, picking up their signal caller for the 2024 class in Michael Hawkins. So we're going to be talking about his commitment. We've talked about him a ton, but just the implications of his commitment on five-star David Stone, five-star Devon Mitchell. So we're going to be diving in there. And then we're going to be talking about Xavier Sims put OU in his top 10. Fox Crater's making a visit today. It's kind of interesting making a visit on Monday, the 10th. OU made a top 5 for Isaiah Autry and then made a top 12, I believe, for Aaron Scott. So Oklahoma's making some top lists, some single digits, some double digits. Oklahoma picking up a commitment, trending in a great way for a lot of kids right now. This 24 class is starting to heat up. So let's roll right into it. So obviously, Michael Hawkins, we don't really need to talk about his game a whole lot because we've talked about him 75 times in the last year. But obviously a 4-star in the 24 class, legacy, an OU legacy, ended up picking OU over TCU. Always good to win there and have our signal caller for the 24 class. Now, I never really thought it was in doubt. It seemed like TCU made a good run, but they picked up the quarterback commitment last Friday, the 3 stars. So it seemed like that TCU knew that they were going to be in second place. But with Hawkins committing, it seemed like if you were on social media and you followed a Devon Mitchell or a David Stone and other players in the 24K class, they were tweeting about his commitment. Where is he going? What's he doing? And as we're recording this Sunday night, within the last hour, Steve Wiltfong entered in Cristobal in favor of 2025, soon to be 2024 5-star tight end Devon Mitchell. Jose, what do you think about Mitchell and the implications of Hawkins? Obviously, they're boys, they're best friends. It seems like that this could all be wrapped up here pretty quick. He's at Miami this weekend, but you got to feel good.
Yeah, so I was going to mention he's at Miami, and the Cristobal came, I guess, towards the end of his visit or while he's visiting Oklahoma. So that really shows that Oklahoma has a huge lead on every other school in their recruitment with Devon Mitchell. Now, he's still classified as 2025, but he's expected to reclassify to 2024. We'll see when that happens. I guess there's also an if that happens, but I know that's a big rumor with him. If he reclassification or not, Michael Hawkins committing to Oklahoma seems to have put almost a guarantee on Devon. It's hard to say 100% he is going to be part of a 2024-2025 class, but it's hard to imagine he doesn't come to OU. Michael Hawkins is already... So the Cristobal came in, and then not that long after, Michael Hawkins put out a tweet about, you know where to go, tweeting at Devon Mitchell. So it's hard to imagine he's not wearing crimson and cream, and then the fact that he's been very outspoken about how Oklahoma was the leader and he really likes OU. I think a lot has to go wrong for OU to fumble that bag. So hopefully it doesn't happen, and then that puts OU in a really good position just overall in recruiting. I saw Parker threw in tweet. I know he was just talking about the quarterback position, but there's very good argument that Oklahoma's recruiting has actually improved substantially with this new coaching staff.
Yeah, you're set for the next 3 years. If all those kids stay, which is still a conversation to be had. I think it's worthy of to see if all three will stick it out the whole time. Arnold will, and Sperry will. The Hawkins is the only one that I wonder about. But Devon Mitchell, speaking of that tweet, he quote tweeted Michael Hawkins like 10 minutes ago before we started this podcast and hit it with like the eyeball emoji and like the surprised emoji or whatever. So yeah, it all bodes very well for Oklahoma. And Devon Mitchell's a guy that when Brom and I first talked about him on the show, he's like he reminds me of Calvin Johnson with his figure. He's like a 6'5" dude. He's a dude that you would create in a video game. With his speed, just height, athleticism, everything. There's not a lot to not love about Devon Mitchell's game, especially thinking about him coming to Oklahoma. If he does reclassify, as Bram mentioned, strong possibility he gets over here in the 2024 class, then Michael Hawkins already got his number one target going forward, a guy that he's going to have a lot of comfortable. He's going to be very comfortable with, a guy that is going to be good with no matter who the quarterback is. Devon Mitchell, I think, is probably the most exciting recruit that Michael Hawkins will bring with him offensively. And there's not, again, there's really not a lot to not love about Devon Mitchell's game. I'm very, very excited to see how this moves forward. And hopefully with that crystal ball, hopefully it moves quickly. And hopefully we see an announcement from him that he's committing soon. And I think Michael Hawkins is like the first domino of what should be a lot.
And, looking from OU's perspective, obviously you want Devon Mitchell regardless. But when you look at their depth and the long-term outlook of the tight end room, you've got Stogner for another year, and then he's going to be gone. But you're really young with Caden Helms, Jason Llewellyn, and a few others. And then you bring in like Devon Mitchell. Granted, he's still very young. Obviously, if he does even reclassify, he's even younger. But that room is going to be good for a long time. And I think they're doing what they're doing with this quarterback room, where they're going to be able to eliminate those gaps between the years in the depth chart, where you're really veteran and, for the first string, and then second and third, you were really young. Obviously last year with the whole quarterback experiment, we saw that. And I think that we're experiencing that in the tight end room right now. Stogner is by far the best tight end that OU has on the team. But they need a second stringer and third stringer to be able to step in and have no issues. And I think in the next year or two, you're going to have that, and you're not going to have much of a drop off. And that's what OU's trying to do all over the place. Obviously, with the defensive line, it's the same thing. It's just there's been this huge gap of recruiting every other year, or not being able to put together consistency, or getting quality with quantity. And so Devon Mitchell also really fills a need that Oklahoma is trying to fill.
Yeah, and it's hard to not, if he does join Oklahoma like we expect him to, it seems like he would be one of the guys that would get playing time as a freshman, as a true freshman, because like you mentioned, right now Oklahoma has pretty young talent. By the time Mitchell were to be on campus, they're going to be more experienced, but how much more experienced will they be on the field than Mitchell will be at that time? Maybe Llewellyn or Helms. It's kind of a toss-up there, and that's still a maybe because you have transfer Blake Smith that's there to kind of take Daniel Parker's role when being a more blocking tight end and pass catcher. Mitchell's assuming that those two younger guys in Helms and Llewellyn don't step on the field this year, and Devon Mitchell does reclassify. So there's obviously a lot of things that have to happen there. Going into the spring of 2024, if he reclassifies, he would have just as much experience as Helms and Llewellyn. And if he can get stronger physically, because he'll need to be able to still block some, that's something that the tight ends are asked to do a lot in this offense. His pass catching ability is just as good, if not better, than the other guys. And he's big, so he might be a guy that a lot of fans would be looking at to be impactful as a true freshman.
I mean, for a kid that is a sophomore going into his junior year, 6'4", 245 is pretty impressive. You don't have to put on a ton of weight once you get to Oklahoma. Obviously, they will, and they'll shape him how they want him to be. But still, I mean, I do agree. He could be a day one contributor. So anyway, obviously a lot of positive momentum, and it seems like it's been we've been waiting for this, and we finally, I think we have the the catalyst to really get this class rolling as we go into the spring game. What are we, less than 2 weeks out now? And talking about another 5-star who's solidly in the 24 class is David Stone. If you've been following him on Twitter and Instagram, he's tweeting about Oklahoma. He's posting Instagram stories about the Michael Hawkins commitment and where's he going, and a lot of hype with OU. And his profile picture is in an Oklahoma jersey. And he's not shy about his love for Oklahoma, being from Oklahoma. I see David Stone. Michigan State seems to be fading back into the little bit of a distance. Miami's there, Texas A&M's there, LSU's there, a few other schools are there. I just have a hard time seeing him going anywhere but Oklahoma. It seems like Todd Bates and them are really putting the full court press on him. They survived the wave from Michigan State, and maybe that's partly because some coaches have left, but still they were able to weather that storm there. And Oklahoma seems to be in a prime position. Now, can they get him on campus for the spring game? That would be great if they could. You'd really like Oklahoma's chances then. And then can you get him on an official in June and lock down his commitment by early, midsummer, maybe by the 4th of July? I think with having Michael Hawkins in the fold, I think this moves by midsummer. I think he could be a part of this class by July 4th. Brandon, what do you think? Obviously, you got to like the way that Stone has been tweeting, and he seems to be a big fan of Hawkins.
Yeah, no, I agree. And when Michael Hawkins first made his announcement yesterday or 2 days ago, he mentioned a couple guys by name, David Stone being one of them. He mentioned Devon Mitchell, Bryant Wesco, and David Stone, I think, were the 3 names specifically that he was like, yeah, I want these guys to come with me. All along, I think we've all felt as if David Stone was going to ultimately end up a Sooner. It's been a very interesting process with Michigan State pushing really hard. I think Mel Tucker's doing a real good job there. He obviously got by Joe out of the state of Oklahoma, and he was pushing real hard in the David Stone commitment, still is. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't think the kid's gonna get out of Oklahoma. He's gonna end up being a Sooner, and he'll be obviously a monster. He's gonna be a guy that has potential to be a day one guy no matter where he goes. So it's very exciting that he's likely going to end up a Sooner. I think with him, he starts the process in getting guys like Williams-Nwaneri that we talk about a lot on the show, Nigel Smith, the big 3, as I've always called it, with those 3 guys. I think with David Stone, which your timeline's fine, somewhere midsummer is okay. I think once you get David Stone, then you start working towards Williams-Nwaneri and Nigel Smith. And I think that both those become real possibilities once you get Stone. But again, nothing's over till it's over. We'll still sweat it out all the way till it happens. But I do agree. I think Oklahoma ultimately, as we said all along, will eventually be the decision. It's just it's a waiting game.
And the biggest question mark with Stone isn't even his love for Oklahoma or how much Todd Bates and him click, how he fits in the defense, the fact that he can be on the field as a true freshman for OU. Like, all that stuff seems pretty clear. What's been reported multiple times now is just his family and people close to him wanting to make sure that the situation is good for him. And that's been the biggest, holdup with him being committed already, because at this point, it seems like it's common knowledge he's tried to commit twice now. And the second time, I believe it was his family that asked him to wait a little bit because they want to, they just want to make sure that, I'm not sure if it's some people that they're trying to kind of keep him away from, or they just want him to have more experience in recruiting. But either way, the next time that he's on campus, hopefully with his family, Michael Hawkins being there, and, Michael Hawkins Sr. and Malik and maybe Devon, if all of them as a group are there together, maybe that'll help ease any concerns that mom or the family have with committing to Oklahoma and just, giving him the okay. Like, if you really want to be a Sooner, go ahead and make your commitment to Todd Bates and Brent Venables and let's get your recruitment over with.
I hope so, because, think about Stone being in the fold, potentially Nigel Smith, Williams-Nwaneri. That's a trio right there. And then we're forgetting the fourth guy that could really seem to be potentially a part of this class too is Xavier Sims. He put out a top 10 this past weekend. I think maybe it was Friday. Xavier Sims put OU in his top 10. TCU's up there, Michigan State's up there, and a few others are in his top 10. And those seem to be OU, TCU, Michigan State, kind of seem to be the top three per se. TCU, he has family ties there. He's got a scheduled official visit with them. He's going to be taking an official with OU in June. And then he's got an upcoming spring visit to Oregon. It's an unofficial visit. He's going to be up there for the spring game. That's the X factor is Oregon. And I think Sims could be a guy that Oklahoma loses out on. And I know people are going to be upset with him being from Durant and just right down the road and across the border in Oklahoma's backyard. I just wonder that Oregon could become a big factor here, or TCU is already there. If Oklahoma does get David Stone, Williams Nwaneri, and Nigel Smith, you get three of the top 10 defensive linemen in the class. Can you convince a fourth one who's a top, 15 guy? Can you convince a fourth one to join the class? I'm not sure you can. And I'm not saying that if Sims committed before Nigel Smith, I'm not sure you can convince Nigel Smith to come in. It's just a lot of players for one position. But Oklahoma was able to do it with the safety and the defensive back room. They brought in a ton of talent last year. I just wonder if Sims or someone like a Nigel Smith, if someone commits before them, do they look elsewhere just because of the people in the class? I certainly hope not. I want as many people as we possibly can, obviously. I just wonder if Sims has a longer recruiting timeline because he just released a top 10. I feel like David Stone, we know where he's kind of at generally. We kind of know where Nigel Smith is at. He's dropping the top. We interviewed him. I can't remember if he's dropping like a top 5, top 6 here sometime soon. I can't remember what number he said. And then we've got an idea of where Williams Nwaneri is. And he's more of like a top 5, top 6 kind of area. Is Sims still far out? Jose, what do you think?
So you named a lot of good players, and then there's one that still seems like a long shot, but Edric Houston. He was on campus not that long ago. OU impressed him. If he can come back, once, beginning of summer, a couple times during the summer months, you'd like where OU's positioned. Obviously, it's going to be hard to get him out of, I believe he's from Georgia, so it's not going to be easy to pull him away from UGA, but OU's done well with all defensive linemen. So really, you're in a position to potentially have 3 5-star defensive linemen. If A&M can do it, I have no worries that Todd Bates and Oklahoma can do it, because at least Oklahoma shows that they can produce and win. And Todd Bates has a history of developing good defensive linemen, and Chavis has done well with recruiting. A&M is just dropping bags. Obviously, that helps them out a lot, but at some point, these kids want to win and they want to be good. They want to be put in a position to be drafted in the NFL. This defensive line recruiting, obviously it's not happening as quickly as we'd all like it to, but it still does seem like OU is in a spot to be a top 5, top 3 class in the 2024 recruiting cycle because of how well they're doing with defensive lineman recruiting. With, like you mentioned, Williams Nwaneri is a 5-star. I believe he's the highest ranked when you look at composites, and David Stone's right behind him. Nigel Smith's right up there, Edric Houston's right up there, Xavier Sims is up there, and I'm sure we're missing a couple. So as long as they can get, let's just say 2 out of those 4 names that we just went through, they're in a good spot. And if they can get 3 or get a perfect clean sweep and get all of those guys, Oklahoma's going to be scary on that front.
They're going to be really scary. I agree.
I don't think there's a chance we get all of them, but man, that's a good world to dream in and a good world to be in. You never know, I guess, but Sims is a freak, guys. He's 6'3", 275. Also played tight end. Oklahoma obviously has the in-state advantage, being 2 hours from Norman. Durant is. So there's a lot there, but I mean, he's the one that I feel probably the least comfortable about with all the guys that we're talking about. that we really feel comfortable about with Nawari, Stone, and Nigel Smith. I feel better about those three guys than I do Xadavian Sims, even though he is in our backyard. Michigan State's another school that's pushing for him. We'll see how it all plays out. I'm not as comfortable, or I'm not as confident in Sims as I am some of the others.
No, I would agree. And, he's in Oklahoma, but he's originally from Denison, Texas. So he's not an Oklahoma native. Not quite the same as By Joe, but I mean, he's not from here. So, I mean, at the end of the day, he probably doesn't have that much allegiance to the University of Oklahoma. But looking at it as a whole, talking about this 24K class, OU is legitimately getting looked at and is in the top 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5 of the top 15 players, according to 247. You look at Williams Nwaneri, Sammy Brown, David Stone, Bryant Wesco, and Kobe Black. Oklahoma, I'm not saying they're going 5 for 5 because there's no way in a world that happens. But Oklahoma very well could go 3 for 5 there. And they do that. Even if they go 2 for 5, that'd be good enough for me.
2 for 5 with Stones and Williams Nwaneri.
Yeah.
Those are the 5 to pick.
Yeah. I mean, so I think Oklahoma goes 3 for 5 legit, realistically. And I think they do land Nwaneri and Stone. And I think the third guy is Brian Wesco. I think Sammy Brown, they just can't lock him down. And again, Kobe Black, it's just the 5-star defensive back. I know they got Peyton Bowen last year. It's just maybe we can put two back to back, but we'll have to see. So moving on, Oklahoma's hosting a guy by the name of Fox Crater, a current Oregon commit, 6'6", 285-pound offensive tackle. He's making his rounds. I assume it's spring break or something similar up in the Pacific Northwest. He's making a bundle of visits. He's going to OU today. He's going to TCU on Wednesday. And then he's got Georgia on Thursday, Alabama Friday, LSU Saturday, Stanford that next weekend. He's making the rounds. Obviously, he's committed to Oregon. You would think I'm not sure he's quite locked in if he's making the rounds. Maybe he's confirming and making sure that he is locked in. I don't put a lot of weight in this visit. Maybe Coach B could do something. Brandon, what do you think? I mean, he's got a great frame, but he's from the Pacific Northwest committing to Oregon. I just feel like that this would be a hard get, and he's visiting a boatload of schools.
Yeah, it's a tough get for sure. He's got great size. 6'6", 285 for alignment is obviously fantastic. And I think if you have that size and that capability, also plays basketball, I think he has the potential to be a very, very good offensive lineman. And if you do, I don't understand why you wouldn't at least visit Oklahoma, because, I mean, I really do genuinely believe Bill Bedenbaugh is the best offensive line coach in the country. I think his resume speaks for itself. So if there's one guy I think that could swing it, and you're right, it is very far from the Pacific Northwest, but if there's one coach out there who can swing a kid's decision, say, hey, come play for me, I think Bill Bedenbaugh has as good a chance as anybody if you just look at what he's done in college football and in the league with putting guys in the league. It's really hard to argue against what Bedenbaugh has done. If you get a guy who's 6'6", 285 that can move like that on the line, I think Bill Bedenbaugh can do a lot with him and make him a quality NFL player if that is his long-term goal, which most of these kids that we talk about, that is the long-term goal because they are that good. It's going to be interesting. I agree. I don't think Oklahoma eventually wins out, but I mean, you never know. And Coach B is the best in the world at it, so we'll see how it works out. And he has a great name. I think Fox Crater is a great, great name.
Coach B is definitely the reason Oklahoma's in this spot. And honestly, shout out to Miles M. He put out an edit a while back, and it showed how much the offensive lineman that Coach B has coached, how much they've made in their NFL careers. It was quite a bit of money. I'm sure that caught the eye of recruits because, again, they're not just going. Their goal isn't just to play college football. Their goal is to be drafted in the NFL. So if you see a guy that's doing that for others, and if you believe that you're talented enough, just compete, just right with your raw talent coming out of high school, you put yourself in a spot with one of the most consistent and best offensive line coaches in the country. There's no reason you shouldn't be successful. Now, it is interesting. I believe it's a first visit he's taken to Oklahoma. He is committed to Oregon, so we'll see how much this visit does impact his long-term recruitment. But clearly he is not fully locked into Oregon if he is taking that visit to Oklahoma tomorrow, and then he's taking a visit to TCU later on in the week. If OU can show him a good visit, I'm not sure if he's just there for one day or a couple days, but however long he's there, if he has a good experience, I am very confident that Coach B can convince him to decommit from Oregon and try to pull him to Oklahoma, because it's not like it'd be the first guy from the Pacific Northwest that he'd pull in. We saw Keith Ozida up in that area that I don't believe he's gotten to Oklahoma. I think he's just finishing up high school right now. He played basketball, if I recall. So once he's there, I think we'll start to create that pipeline and that short drive between Norman and Washington.
Very short drive for all our people that have been watching forever. It's a very short drive.
Maybe Elon can just create one of those super fast tunnels from Norman to Washington. That way the guys can get there pretty quickly.
I agree. Elon should definitely be doing that. So Oklahoma made a top 5 this weekend as well for Isaiah Autry, 6'6", 280-pound offensive tackle out of Tupelo, Mississippi. He's a 3-star, has a top 5 of Florida State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Auburn. So a solid 5 for sure. As Brandon likes to say, he's got the Alabama stamp of approval. He's got a large frame. Oklahoma came in as top 5. We obviously enjoy whenever the top lists come out around this number, because you get 5 official visits. Naturally, you would think Oklahoma would get an official visit out of him. He's got a crystal ball already logged in for Ole Miss. Naturally, you would think that the Rebels would be probably a safe bet, considering they're, the hometown team. But again, Coach B, he's an X factor. His resume speaks for itself, especially with who's about to get drafted this year in the draft here in a couple of weeks, with Anton Harrison, Chris Murray, and Wanya Morris all going. And they're all going to be selected, and probably Harrison a first-round pick. Kids want to go play for a coach like that. Jose, do you have any thoughts of Isaiah Autry? It seems like I'm not really familiar with him. What do you think?
So I'm not too familiar with him either. We just kind of find out about him right before we started recording, so I try to pull in as much information as possible. He's a talented guy. Shout out to him for cutting it down to 5 so early. That's not a common thing. We've talked about top 10s and 12s and 11s, and probably talked about top 20 at some point. Like, yes, it's cool that they're starting to limit down what schools they're focusing on, but narrowing it down to a top 5 at this point in the recruiting cycle, it's clearly not something that a lot of kids do. He knows that these are probably 5 schools that, if he does take all 5 official visits, these are the 5 he's more likely to go to. And again, Coach, you mentioned it, Coach B's the X factor. So if Oklahoma really wants to be in a position to pull him away from Ole Miss, then you would like OU's chances. They are recruiting. They're recruiting extremely well. Like, it seems like we've talked every single episode about how OU's putting themselves in a position to really make pushes for some of the most talented players in this 2024 recruiting cycle. He's one of them, but there's other offensive linemen like Fox Crater. We've talked about Bennett Warren, who OU's really seemed to kind of taken a lead in potentially. So, man, this offensive line group, it wouldn't surprise me if there's another 4 or 5 guys in this class to just continue being a stacked line between now and, by the time Kevin Sperry gets to take starting snaps at Oklahoma.
Yeah, he's got great frame, 6'6", 280 is a great size for an offensive lineman. He's also a power lifter, boys, so he can that doesn't hurt to be on an offensive line and also be a power lifter. So he's obviously a very strong kid, big strong kid. Coach B wants him. He's got the stamp of approval from Alabama. I'm with you guys. I don't know a whole hell of a lot about his game, but I mean, 6'6", 280, powerlifting dude that can move pretty well, and he's got the stamp from Alabama. He's got the stamp from Coach B. I'm all on board. He plays one of our favorite positions on the field, somewhere on that offensive line. Yeah, hopefully Oklahoma can close on it. Hopefully Oklahoma can add to it. He seems like he's a very underrated kid just by looking at his offers. The fact that he's offered by the schools that have offered him, Alabama, Ole Miss, Florida State, Oklahoma. He's got really, really big time offers for a kid who's rated as a 3-star. I think maybe he could shoot up in the rankings. Not that it really matters, but he seems to be an underrated kid with great size, great speed, and really strong. So obviously, you hope Oklahoma can build the offensive line with kids like that. So hopefully, we are able to finish and add them to the class.
Hopefully so. And talking about making another top list, Oklahoma made a top 12, our favorite number, double digits, for Aaron Scott, a defensive back out of Springfield, Ohio, excuse me. And his top 12 consisted of Oregon, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, Penn State, Notre Dame, Kentucky, Pitt, Louisville, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. He's really talented, a really talented kid. My initial thought is, being a 4-star, being a top 4 cornerback, according to 247, he's the number 4 corner in the country. He's from the state of Ohio. Ohio State typically does not let players in the defensive back room leave the state of Ohio. He's nowhere near making a decision. It seems like I don't really have much as far as hope or expectations for Oklahoma in this recruitment. Oklahoma's in a great spot for a lot of other elite defensive backs, blue chip defensive backs. I think he included Oklahoma just because it's a big name. That's just me. Brandon, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, unfortunately, I agree. I think we talked about with Kobe Black last time that I think Ho said it, like in Coach Valai and Coach Hall, whatever, we trust. And I agree with that. With Kobe Black, I think it's going to be a tough commitment to land, but I think that's one that you're very much in play for. I think everybody that's in his top whatever is very much in play. That's going to be a battle to the end. I don't know if there's really a clear-cut favorite yet in Kobe Black's recruitment. I think we're in that one. That's going to be tough. Go with Coach Valai, get it done. If he's able to swing Aaron Scott out of Ohio State's backyard and get him, I think it would be a more impressive recruiting job than landing Kobe Black, just because it's going to be real tough to get him to not go to Ohio State. As you kind of mentioned, we're talking about. He's a kid that has. I mean, he's a good player. Obviously, he's got really, really good ball skills. He had 5 interceptions last year. 2 of them went back for touchdowns. He had a couple fumble recoveries. He's all around the ball. He also plays basketball. But I agree with you. The expectations for Aaron Scott are not very high. I mean, I genuinely think it'd be a more impressive recruiting job from Coach Valai if he's able to get Aaron Scott than it would be to get Kobe Black.
Yeah, Aaron Scott, we'll see what ends up happening with that recruitment. The reason I'm not as hopeful as is different from you guys. It really just seems to be a limited on spots. If things don't turn out like in Oklahoma's favor with a guy like Kobe Black and Jalen Hardy and the other defensive backs we've talked about, it's hard to name all of them, but it seems like Michael Patterson McDonald, that's a spot we have to pretty much taken, but he hasn't committed yet. We already have Jeremiah Newcomb. You've got probably 2. You for sure 1, more than likely 2. How many more defensive backs are they going to take in this 2024 class? They took a lot in 2023. I wouldn't assume that they would take as many this time as they did this last cycle. So maybe take 4, 5 tops, and that's just defensive backs as a group. So that might be 2 safeties, 3 corners, 4 safeties, or 4 corners, 1 safety. Who knows what that mix will be, because sometimes these kids can play both spots coming out of high school. If things go south for one recruit, then maybe Oklahoma pushes a little harder for Aaron Scott, but that would also assume that they do it at the right time, because you can't wait, especially with what you guys both said. Being from Ohio, it's going to be tough to crack that area and take someone from Ohio State's backyard, but again, Jay Valai has shown that he can take kids from all around the country. He did it with Makari Vickers, taking him out of Alabama. Went after Josiah Wagner up in Pacific Northwest. Just got Jeremiah Newcomb out of USC/Oregon territory and kind of Arizona State. So really, it depends on where spots get filled. If things go south, then maybe Aaron Scott is a guy that we're going to be talking about more in the summer.
Maybe. I just don't think the Buckeyes let him leave. But hopefully I'm wrong. It'd be interesting to see. But that's all I've got. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Jose, you got a final thought? Brandon, what's up?
Yeah, so I guess we hosted a 4-star defensive end out of Florida, Peter Pazanski, and he meant in an article from Ryan Wright from what's the website called? Recruiting News Guru. He enjoyed his visit to Oklahoma, and OU's probably going to get an official from him. I don't believe it's scheduled yet, but there's another 4-star defensive lineman that Oklahoma's in a spot to get an official from. So just more defensive line talent that Oklahoma's going after.
Can't complain.
The more the merrier. Exactly.
Can't complain. Brandon, any video challenge?
Yeah, we'll just roll into it with Mike Hawkins being the latest 2024 commitment and talking about guys like Bryant Wesco, David Stone, others that he's trying to bring along with him. Devon Mitchell obviously just picked up a crystal ball tonight in favor of OU. So I guess we'll do who is the next 2024 commitment and what is a relative timeline. What do you guys think? Is it Devon Mitchell? Is he the next one?
I'm gonna pick
to reclassify.
I'm gonna guess a guy that's in this 2024 cycle already, and I'm gonna go with Bryant Wesco.
I would take that one.
Yeah, that's always a good spot to be in. Bryant Wesco is obviously very talented. I honestly am not 100% sure who I would say. Maybe Patterson McDonald might lock it down after the spring game. I could see him doing that. That'd be my guess. Oklahoma's probably in a pretty good spot for him at this point, and I see him shutting it down here pretty soon.
Wouldn't mind that one either. That one means David Stone. I'll go ahead and say it's Devon Mitchell. Why not?
Why
There's
not?
also Isaiah McMorris.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling it's a wide receiver.
Brian would be a good one to start the 2024 recruiting class with as far as receiver commit.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely would. So if you made it this far, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below, and we will catch you guys later this week.